Hi and welcome back to the show. Well, this week I got Colleen Yates, the CEO of Regional Development Australia, Perth. How are you, Colleen?
I'm good, thank you very much, Michael.
Well, CEO of Regional Development Perth. Now, it has been going for quite a while, and I'm hoping to talk to you a little bit about that. But perhaps before we start, maybe just a little bit about your history. Where did you come from? How did you get into this position?
Yep, I came, as you can tell, I have an accent.
No.
So obviously I did not originate from Australia. I came from the US in about 1992 on a whim, with my two young kids, and basically my sister's husband or a partner at that time, they had bought some land down in Denmark, so I came, to stay on the land, for about a year, and the hope was that I would enjoy being in Australia and would want to live here because he was working in the States, and he had hoped that once he was done working in the States, that when they moved back here, my sister would have family. Yeah. So I absolutely fell in love with Australia. It's a beautiful place. Denmark is absolutely stunning.
It is, isn't it? It's gorgeous down in Denmark.
It is. Yeah, I consider
Denmark, Western Australia for our overseas viewers.
So I decided to start a business and introduced New Mexico chilies to the Australian market. So the jalapenos, the habaneros, all range of chilies.
Back in the late 90s, there mustn't have been many. Was there anyone else doing that in WA?
Effectively, no. Most of jalapenos were imported from overseas. So chilies weren't a big thing back then. Now they are. Yes. And there's a proliferation of Mexican restaurants, Zambreros. Everybody's doing Mexican. But back in the 90s, there was not a lot.
No.
So imported the seeds, got them through quarantine, and started growing chilies down in Denmark.
Just on that point, importing things, and a lot of business people do watch the channel. Were there any challenges on getting them in, being a seed that's coming into? Yep,
there were some challenges. So they had to be tested, and because I was bringing in kilo or actually pound amounts or half a kilo amounts. Yeah. So they had to be sealed. They had to be certain. They had to meet all the requirements to pass quarantine. So. I got them from a very reputable supplier over in New Mexico, and started growing chilies.
Wow! And what did you do with that business? Did you sell it? Did you pass it on to somebody else?
Yes, I did. I did sell off bits of it, and that was in the 2000s. Basically because immigration requirements, I needed to actually apply from offshore for my permanent residency, and so
right, okay. Yeah.
So you have to follow the rules.
You certainly do. Yeah. Now, I believe it was about 2013 you joined RDA, was it? So
that's correct.
5 years ago.
Yep. Wow, 5 years.
I know.
It's been 5 years. Oh my God.
Isn't it amazing when people say that to you, kind of go, it's been that long already?
In 2013. I had left the Development Commission in 2013. And saw this ad in the paper for Regional Development Australia Perth, and I thought, that's my job.
That's your job.
That's my job. So it was interesting because I wanted to apply the art of regional development to a metropolitan area. So it's it's a certain way of getting agreement and collaboration and so forth, and. I just thought, what a fantastic challenge. That would be really great.
When you read it, what was in it that you went, I can do this, or that's going to be exciting? And you said bringing like regional development into a metropolitan area. Was that the appeal? Was there some other parts in it?
That was the appeal. Yeah. Because the Perth metropolitan area has 29 local governments. I had come from a region that had only 5, so I thought,
that'll be easy.
let's see how this goes. And my intent at that time was to undertake an economic development strategy and infrastructure priorities plan for Perth and for Peel, and align it with the Perth and Peel at 3.5. So worked across the 29 local governments of the Perth region plus the 5 local governments of the Peel region. And we also had a non-disclosure agreement with Department of Planning, basically to be able to work with them and access information to make sure that that we were aligning what they were doing and getting some agreement across the local governments.
Cool. I mean, for people watching, I mean, that's a lot of people to be bringing together on the same table and speaking in the same voice to get the same result. As a business person, we have challenges with customers and suppliers and employees. What skill set do you think you brought to RDA, which is attractive, that enabled you to do this?
I've had quite a few people ask me recently, you've got a special skill set. And we've been trying to actually define what that is. But yeah, it's working through the issues, having a lot of conversations, getting people to agree to an outcome, even if it means to agreeing to disagree. So getting everything out and getting that agreement and moving forward.
Wow. So RDA 2013, what did it look like back then? Where were you actually starting from? Well,
RDA Perth, they had, as I understand it, RDA Perth had been shut down in 2011 or 2012. And then there was a change of government, and then it had to be started back up again. And so it was pretty much a fledgling organization. And because the metropolitan area functions differently than the other regions, RDA Perth had to function differently. So, for instance, a number of the other RDAs across the state, they actually provide the function of delivering services into their region. In a metropolitan area, you don't have to do that because there's a lot of services provided. So, what we were basically doing was trying to identify the gaps. So, a mandate was put forward back in 2013-14 that RDAs were to look after economic development, and so that's creating looking at developing new business investment and job growth for those particular regions. So that's what we focused on. We basically looked at how do we do that? How do we take the existing planning? How do we prioritize infrastructure that would drive that investment and job growth?
How do you do that? That's a big task.
You just do it.
Nike, just do it.
You just do it. We had brought on some really excellent consultants.
I was going to say, did you use outside consultants?
Yes. We raised funding from the region, so we raised over $80,000 for that driving change report, and which matched about around the same amount that RDA put into it, and we worked across. We had workshops, we had conversations, it was a 2-year process to actually 3-year process to get that done and to get the agreement. We had a steering committee from across local government and just had that conversation and really nutted out what we needed to do. So in 2016, we launched our driving change report, and in it there were what we called nation building activities, and then some regionally significant activities. So the nation building, for instance, was the new port at Kwinana. That was our #1 priority. That needed to happen.
That's a huge project. The benefits that are going to spin off that, for overseas viewers, it's a new port in what we call the Outer Harbour development, but massive financial and economic implications, setting us for the next 100 odd years plus, surely.
Yeah, it's I think one of the biggest, most strategic economic development opportunities for the state, because especially with Western Australia, as the Asian Pacific region grows, where most of the population is, trade's going to increase, ships are going to get bigger, there's a whole range of things that need to be looked at.
And we're right on the main shipping lane, aren't we, that comes through like from China all the way down. We're on a prime location. We're
at a prime location, but interestingly enough, we're not the main location for shipping in and out of Australia. Melbourne, I think, is a port that is used mostly. So we do have an interesting situation where things come to Melbourne. They don't stop in Perth, but things come to Melbourne, and on occasion, things get shipped from Melbourne by truck to Perth. So, it's trying to understand, these dynamics and trying to figure out, well, what is it that we have to do to become a really fantastic port and a great destination.
I've got to ask you, I want to talk about some of the projects that you've initiated and got on. But a lot of people will step into these CEO roles and steer the ship, as it were, and because they have a passion themselves, they want to exert their own influence, which is fair enough. You want someone with a passion. Now you're part of RDA. Are you allowed to bring some of your own influences to bear, like some of your own personal passions that you see is going to be really viable for WA?
Well, I think with the driving change and in the conversations, across local government, in particular the outer metro, I found with the metropolitan area that there was a desire to retain that peri-urban space and look at agriculture. And I've always been passionate, obviously, about agriculture.
Yes.
And so it was a nice fit. And the driving change document is a document that's been determined by the stakeholders, but the items that are in there, I've become passionate about those things.
Yeah.
So because I actually believe those are the things that we need to do to drive that investment and job growth.
I can imagine the peri-urban. It's worth talking about that. That's a huge, viable. It's an exciting project. But obviously, someone like yourself who's involved in agriculture, you've come from chillies and growing plants and so forth. And small land holdings, and that's peri-urban, isn't it?
That's correct.
We can start bringing, instead of WA is famous for thousands and thousands of acres for our farms, but we're bringing that into very condensed pockets.
Yes, and there has been quite a bit of subdivision in that space. So your 20 hectare, 40 hectare, 100 hectare land holdings have been reduced down to lifestyle blocks. So 10 acres and 2 acres and 5 acres. And so people move to these places to pursue a lifestyle choice. Oftentimes it involves horses.
Yes.
And but there's also a growing interest in terms of what else can they do on that land. Now, being a small property owner, in terms of volumes that you can produce, it's not really for the likes of the Coles and the Woolies. So. There are other opportunities, other direct marketing things that exist. So the farmers markets, it's a perfect space for people to actually engage in that place.
It's a very community-orientated type of produce growing, isn't it?
It is.
It's really your local people can come, and I know a few of the peri-urban developments going on at the moment, they allow families to go in and pick their own fruit and pick their own vegetables. It's becoming a more the organic is not the type of growing, but very tactile.
Yeah, it is, and to be able to go shopping in the region, and pick your own produce is a great thing. And it teaches kids as well. Where does the produce come from? Rather than going to Coles and asking the checkout chick, "Is this apple going to get any bigger?"
Yes, we've seen a few of that, haven't we?
Yeah.
And kids at school actually don't understand what fruit and vegetables are, or they can't even name them.
Yeah, yeah. So. So I think it's important, to retain that particular area, but it also allows, people to create businesses, to employ, and to do a whole range of things. So it's really fantastic. And I found out not too long ago, interesting farmer. There's a woman she grows bugs, edible bugs. She's got a small land holding, and she, as I understand it, she was trying to figure out, well, what can I produce on the small land holding to, have a big market?
Yeah.
And so, insects.
Really?
She produces insects,
and
edible insects.
Edible?
Edible insects, yes.
Okay, so what kind of insects is she growing?
I'm not quite sure. That's as far as I'm aware of what she does. But,
yes.
but I'm sure if anybody Googles her, they can find this woman who's growing insects to eat.
Look, if you go
protein.
if you go to the Asian countries, they eat insects all the time.
Yeah.
And I do know they're making their way onto the menus here in Perth. People are discovering them and going, hey, you know what, this is quite good.
I'm not quite sure if I'm brave enough yet, to be chewing down on some crickets or whatever. But
grasshopper shish kebab's not on the menu for the weekend.
No. I do like Skippy on a stick. So I love emu, but I haven't gone down toward the bugs yet.
The peri-urban is very exciting, and it kind of is leading to even smaller greening of the urban areas. And you've been talking to people in, is it biophilics? Is that the correct term for it?
Yep. We've had somebody come onto the show, Jana Soderlund. She got a doctorate in studying biophilics, and that's basically greening up the urban form. So it's not quite the peri-urban, which is the land, lifestyle land holdings. It's actually bringing the green, the green space into the urban areas. So designing buildings, having green roofs, doing a whole range of things along those lines, which Perth needs to do because it's getting hotter. We are affected by climate change, and so if we could implement some of these strategies into our urban form, we could actually reduce some of the costs in terms of energy consumption and the whole bit. Yeah,
it just seems like that is kind of this blend. We've got the peri-urban and then the greening still continuing but into the cityscape. And look, Perth's ideal. We've got a beautiful river. We get great weather. We get plenty of rainfall in the actual city centre. Maybe some of our farmers would like our rainfall. That's in the thing.
Yeah.
It seems to me like we sometimes when people think of regional development Australia, Perth, and they go, oh, that'll be all technical, that'll be all industry. But there's this huge push to combine the environment with what is going on. It's almost going to change the look of the landscape of the Perth area.
Yeah, I think that would be really fantastic. And also, you can actually bring that peri-urban bit into that biophilic greening. So there's been a lot of talk in some areas about streetscapes in residential areas of planting fruit trees and food plants, rather than just grass and deciduous trees and the whole bit. So there are opportunities to actually bring that into the urban form. And I do know some communities that are doing that. And I think from that also comes the community gardens, so a number of people are doing that. And I know I belong to a social media site called Frio Food. And so people share ideas, thoughts, what they grow in their backyard with each other, through social media. So it's really fantastic. I think there's a big interest in this area.
It is. I live in the northern suburbs, and one of our parks, rather than just planting a normal tree, they actually planted olive trees.
Oh, wow. So does somebody pick the olives and make olive oil?
Oh, yes. We all go down there. There's a whole community goes down and picks olives and washes the olives and prepares them. And it has changed it from just being a beautiful tree that greens the park into something, as you said, it's now providing food within. And
that's got to be a great community. I mean, you get to know your neighbors that way.
Oh, you do when you're fighting over the right tree. That's my tree.
That's my olive.
You're always fighting for the best ones. So we've gone through that. The diversity of a CEO in a position like yours is enormous, because we've gone from that to even talking about defence.
Yes.
How do you switch gears?
Well, it's basically the needs of the region. Okay, so in 2016, the Defence Whitepaper was released. And what we were trying to understand, well, what is it that we've got? Because I know everybody was talking about building ships.
Yes.
But I wanted to understand, is there any other opportunity that might exist that would support, building defense in WA? And there was very little information around, and it was quite fragmented. So we did pull somebody on to pull all that together. Now, we did that before the state election, and so we did it in the absence of information. Then the state election came along while we were still doing the report, and with the new state government, there was a Minister for Defence Interests. And so we ran into this really funny space where we went from one government to another government, went from a void to a lot of activity. And so we released our report, or the recommendations in the report in August, just as Defense West was starting up. So all we've been trying to do is, assist and help, and say, look, we've done this report. It sets the baseline data for Western Australia. We can now measure any defense opportunities as we go into the future. So, being able to measure that, I think, is a really good thing. So, and that report's gotten a lot of interest. It was not an easy report to do.
I can imagine.
It took a long time, to get the information and to put it into a format that was easily readable. But now we know, what we've got, and now it's generated a lot of conversation about, well, what more can we do, as a state? What more can we do as a community in terms of defense?
And it goes beyond that. I was looking at some of the work you've been doing, and it's even supporting groups that are getting small industries to help them win contracts with military suppliers. So, a little business may not be able to go direct to the military itself, but you're supporting those groups that build those bridges to the bigger companies so they can get the little subcontracts.
That's it, and with that I had joined the Henderson Alliance. So that's a grouping of small to medium enterprises, or SMEs. Yeah. And a little while ago, I think, gosh, time flies so quickly.
It does.
I think it was 2 months ago, we actually brought together the SMEs, the primes, and the primes are the bigger companies like Austal, CivMec, who actually get the contracts. Yes. So we brought the SMEs with the primes together, and government from not only Western Australia, but we brought the primes, or the SMEs from Victoria, WA, and from South Australia. And for the first time ever, we had a massive conversation about how we can all work together to support each other and drive these defense opportunities across the 3 states into the future. And it was so successful that we are now going to look at running those in each state. So I think South Australia is going to be next, and then move on to Victoria. So there were over 150 people, that came in from other places, and it was a really, really good outcome, really good conversations. Yeah. And hopefully that'll drive not only the shipbuilding, but all those other opportunities that exist that support defense. Yeah.
Now, you do so much. One thing that I have been interested in is your passion for value-adding to the technologies West Australia and Perth produces, rather than just ship our raw material or raw resource overseas. And you've been heavily involved in helping bring these parties together. Can you tell us a little about some of this technology you've been experiencing and encouraging?
Well, in our Driving Change document, one of the regionally significant outcomes was something called Common User Facilities, okay? And that's based on the AMC model. So by providing some infrastructure, something that an industry requires, that maybe an individual company doesn't want to purchase on their own. Yep. Companies can then start to cluster together, use the common facility that then drives their business. So the first one, when we launched our Driving Change document in 2016, the papers took up the one really interesting thing, which was drones. Right. So we had identified drones as an opportunity to create a common user facility, and so we've been working on that one, and we're just about to launch the business case for the Perth Drone Hub. Wow. So which is going to be really interesting, because that industry has grown massively over the past 2 years. And to be able to have a place where drone operators can come and undertake research, work with universities, test their particular drones, undertake training will be really huge for WA.
It's interesting because you say a drone hub, so we're not talking about people coming to a drone hub to get their pilot's license per se. They may do, but you're more interested in, okay, you've got your license, what can we do with the information the drones are gathering? Is this where you're trying to steer this?
Yeah, it covers off on a number of areas. So with the training, CASA provides a license to fly a drone for anybody who wants, and people need to understand this one, over 2 kilos is a commercial drone. Under 2 kilos, you don't need a license.
No, but you still need to apply for what you're flying, so just be careful.
Yeah, be careful. And be respective of people's backyards. And
and I think Cass's idea is, a lot of us, and especially in business, we have that attitude of we'll do it and ask for forgiveness later. When it's in an aircraft, don't do that. ask first, and they're very, very, and one thing I will say about CASA, they're very, very helpful, and they're very precise, and you won't go wrong if you just ring them and ask them.
That's correct. And but what we found in talking to industry is that you get a CASA license, or a commercial license to be able to undertake commercial activities with a drone, and not every drone user has all the skills that are necessary to cover all industries.
No.
So, for instance, oil and gas has a very particular set of needs. Open pit has a set of needs. Fire and emergency has a different set of needs. Agriculture has a different set of needs. So, what part of the Perth Drone Hub is going to look at is with those people that have a CASA license, we're going to also offer specialized certification across different industries.
Wow.
So the first one we're looking at is oil and gas, and we'll be working with that industry to develop the criteria in order for instance, to fly around platforms, offshore platforms, and basically deliver the training that's needed to be able to use drones in those particular environments. And that's going to be a first. I don't think there's any place else in Australia that does that. And, so it'll be a really, a good opportunity, to get the certification. But also, we're going to work with industry where they're going to provide equipment on the site. And so that could be used for training. It could be used for research. There's a whole bunch of wonderful things that it can come from that. And the data that's collected, what we want to look at is potential data center where people can collect, store, and access all that information that's collected from drones.
Wow. Because there's a lot of people flying them around, taking lots of photos, lots of videos, and we talk about mapping and so forth. It must be absolutely incredible opportunity there. Talking drones, they're powered by the old lithium batteries.
Yes.
And it is obviously a passion that is coming up stronger and stronger, because WA is really well positioned.
We've launched our summary document on Lithium Valley.
Yes.
So
I love that term.
It's really taken off.
Didn't you do a video with Professor Peter Newman?
Yes.
On this.
Because he's the one who came up with the term Lithium Valley. And it was just said at a Western Alliance function. But now you read about Lithium Valley in the paper. Everybody's talking about Lithium Valley, so it's captured the imagination of a lot of people. And so we started that project back in February. The current report, it's a beast of a report. It's over 100 pages long. But it goes through about the opportunities and what currently exists. Again, it's going to be a really great baseline document. But in those recommendations, are the opportunities to move this industry forward, because we've got such a small window, because everybody's wanting batteries. Every country is wanting batteries, but they need the resources to do the batteries, and Western Australia has it all. So we need to be smart in terms of how we maximize that opportunity. We need to really think about, okay, we have the resource. How are we going to negotiate with people who want that resource to ensure that we're delivering investment into WA, jobs of the future into WA, and so that report really looks at that particular issue quite hard.
Because I know when you're talking that report, and there's a big push not just to do what we do with INO, dig it out, sell it, and let someone else do the processing, but to value add to it here. And I read a report on lithium batteries, and I think in a battery we contribute, even though we sold the lithium, probably 0.5% is our value add to that list. So we've got 99.5% that we can at least have a go at.
That's it. And what people don't understand is that the spodumene, which comes out of the mine in the southwest,
yes.
Currently it gets extracted and it gets put on ships and shipped over to places like China, and they refine it.
Yeah.
We're lucky now, we've got Tianqi, which will be starting up production pretty soon. They've actually put a refining facility at Kwinana. And then there's Albemarle that's looking at Kemerton of doing the same thing. So we're now taking that rock, and instead of shipping it offshore to be refined,
yes.
We're looking at refining it here, and that's an absolutely fantastic step, but we need to take it further.
Yeah.
And out of the top 4 refining companies, we now have 3 of them here in WA.
Wow.
So
this is exciting.
It's very exciting. But we need to take it through to the batteries and
yes.
those opportunities. And yeah, we've got it all. It's just negotiating, you know, how we make that work.
Now you just mentioned taking it through to the batteries, and I know there's a conversation that's going on at the moment of how do we actually take the batteries back and then pull them up, because that is in itself can be a lithium mine that we can just have in there.
Yeah, the lithium is 100% recyclable.
Wow.
So, and you know, you've got, for instance, there's 8 grams of lithium per cell phone. Huh. There's 4.7 billion cell phones, or in 2017 there was 4.7, so you know that equates to quite a bit of tonnage.
Yeah, I can't do the maths, but that's a lot of tonnage.
It's a lot, and you know how everybody buys, you know, they get a phone and then they want the latest one, right? So people are changing phones over. You know, what do they do with their old phones? You know what, I know that, you know, there are drop-off points where people can turn their phones in, but I don't think it's been about extracting the lithium out of the phones, right? And I'm just using the phone as an example, you know, but we're now moving into battery-operated power tools.
Yes.
I've got, you know, a lawnmower that's battery operated.
Yeah.
It's nice and quiet, no petrol.
We've got the batteries coming into homes.
Yeah.
As well.
Dyson is stopping corded vacuum cleaners.
Yes, I saw that the other day.
So we're moving quite rapidly into this battery space. EVs, or electric vehicles, you know, that is the big one that's going to be driving this industry probably about 2025, where we've got, you know, there's 45 to, you know, 65 kilos of lithium in a Tesla vehicle. And then you look at BMW, you look at all the companies that are wanting to do that. That is a lot of lithium. So if we're going into that space, we need to think responsibly about, you know, what are we going to do when the batteries, you know, don't work anymore, and they need to be changed over.
Yes.
So we need to look at recycling of that lithium and also the other elements that exist within those batteries. And I think Western Australia is really well geared to look at that space. We've got a fantastic port at Oakajee in Geraldton, and if we think smart and we think strategically and we think long term, we can put a facility there that can take all of the Indo-Pacific e-waste and recycle it, because batteries are actually becoming a bit dangerous in landfill, because if they get crushed, they can explode.
Yes.
I don't know if people have been paying attention. You go on a plane now, and you're told do not extract your phone from your seat if it drops down the side, because they're worried that if somebody moves the seat, it'll get crushed and might cause a problem. So. Right. Yeah, lithium's great, you know, but we also need to think of the whole cycle.
One thing I did pick up, and this is I think from your conversation you had with Professor Peter Newman, and the talking with utility companies, because obviously electricity is coming in, and they resisted it initially because they could see, well, hold on, we don't produce power, but you were talking to them about there's actually, and what you're doing in Perth is looking at the utilities, and they're going to manage, because people just can't manage their own power. They can collect it. Yeah. But this is whole peri-urban greening, turn it into an electric, clean city. You've got some really exciting stuff going on.
Yeah, and what's really fantastic is the state government has really taken up the lithium argument, and really happy about that. We did bring Tesla over from from the U.S.
That was a big one.
We got the Consulate General for the U.S. to actually host a cocktail function, and we were told that that was the first function they ever had that had that many replies in terms of people wanting to attend. And so much so that they had to move the function from inside to outside. And luckily it was a great night, so it was really fantastic. So and Tesla's done a really great job in terms of getting that message across that this is the next big wave. You know, this is where we're going. This is what we need to be doing. And you know, thankfully the state government's been listening, and you know, they've just established a task force, you know, to drive this forward. So
I think what's exciting about this push as well is it is stemming into our education as well. We need higher skilled workers, don't we, to actually operate and process lithium and do all the things around it. So it's going to really help with our educational standards here and also our employment here.
This is known as the fourth or Industry 4.0. So the last industry we've had is about the digitization of things, but now we're moving in, you know, to this automation, batteries. You know, it's a whole new world we're moving into, and people get afraid. You know, like, oh well, automation, it's going to take away jobs. No, it's not going to. It's going to create new, different jobs with new, different skills. And I always like to use the analogy of the typewriter. When the computer came along, everybody thought all those people who were doing all in the typing rooms that they were all going to lose their job. No, more jobs were created. You know, so we're on the same at the same point with Industry 4.0. The jobs are going to change, and at the end of the day, automation is based on an operating system. Okay, and operating systems need people to manage and run them and work with them and fix them, and you know, so it's a whole range of things that will be coming forward, and a whole range of really interesting new jobs. And my grandson, he's 3 years old, and he my daughter gives him her phone, and I watch him manipulate this phone, and I'm just sitting there going, oh my God, 3 years old. And I know we go, oh, you know, we shouldn't let them play too much with these devices, but these devices are actually already training them for the jobs of the future. You know, so yeah, I think we need to find a balance between outside play and technological play. But you know, watching him, I just see, you know, and we've got a lot of kids in that space. You know, so yeah, I think it's going to be amazing.
What a fantastic job! I mean, you're coming from agriculture, environment, technology, education. Where do you see Regional Development Australia Perth now playing its role? Is it consolidating these, or is there still more growth to happen, Colleen?
I think for our next financial year, you know, we'll probably be looking at making sure we're delivering on the outcomes that were identified in the reports that we've done. With the Perth Drone Hub, you know, we're hoping to establish an MOU with Murdoch University, because we've got a site identified. Because industry said, you know, they wanted, you know, around 3 kilometers of clear airspace close to Perth, and that's really hard to find. I was going to say that's difficult in Perth. So, but we did find something out at Whitby Falls, and so we're just working through getting that governance structure into place, and hoping, you know, to work with Murdoch on that. And then there's more things in the defense, you know, that we need to, you know, to look at. So there's some Indigenous training opportunities. Oh, fantastic! You know, so we're working with the other RDAs across the state how we can, you know, maximize that. You know, and then the lithium, you know, we'll see what happens in that space and where we might be able to play a role. And at the base of all of this is our driving change document. Okay. From everything that we do links back to that document. So when things start running on their own and we don't need to be part of it anymore, we'll look back to that document and, okay, what do we need to do next? So there's a number of common user facilities that we'll start to look at. And we might start looking at life sciences, you know, in terms of how can we have a common user facility for life sciences. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Watch this space.
Watch this space.
Colleen, thank you so much for making the time to come in. I know you're so busy with everything, but it's been an absolute pleasure, absolutely fascinating talking to you.
Thank you so much.
If someone wants to find out a little bit more about RDA Perth,
yes.
What's the best way for them to find out, Colleen?
Well, we have our YouTube channel.
Yes.
So if anybody wants to, you know, look at some of the people that we're talking to and hear about some of these things, they can just press play.
Yeah. And
if they want to know what we're doing in the future, they can subscribe to our YouTube site. They can go to our website, so we've got, which is rdaperth.org, very simple address, or they can pick up the phone and call us.
Yeah.
You know, so we're happy to talk to anyone.
Fantastic. Colleen Yates, CEO of RDA Perth, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.